on-site affordable, and heavy quotations, if they got a zoning change, has garbage reporting mechanisms, just awful. Like I think somebody tried to do a series of FOIA requests, like figure this stuff out. It just took the city like months to get all the data together. And then like, who are they getting to live in these units? So in Logan Square, which is a gentrifying neighborhood that I'm sure many of you are aware of, a developer built like I think 100 and something luxury units, and for the affordable units, they were like going to the bars that were right next to the building and like trying to get the bartenders to live in the units. So you have like, entire families of working class Latinos who are getting kicked out of Logan Square by this gentrification, this development, who maybe could have benefited from these affordable units, like I think a particularly narrow income class could have. But instead they were just going to like hipsters and gentrifiers and having them fill those units. So one of the things we're fighting for in the ARO reform ordinance we're working on is like better transparency and better mechanisms for making sure that like when these units do get built, they're going to the people, like they're going to people in such a way to stop gentrification and to balance like these neighborhoods out.
So I'll be really quick, but there's multiple ways to answer your question. So one is building into the CBA Community Review Board or some version thereof, which commits to meeting regularly. The CBAs that have been done nationally, all of them have this component. So just making sure that that is built in for that. And then I know for the Cambridge CBA, there is also components about not only where you're meeting regularly and who you're meeting with, but what they're required to report on. Okay? So that's a short version, and there's lots of examples. And I know Cliff is here from Chicago Lawyers Committee. If you want examples, I'm sure he can link you up. So that's one thing. The other thing is, at least for the jobs part of it, there are mechanisms that are available to help with the tracking so that when you do meet, there's a way to track this stuff that already exists. One of them is an example is like LPC tracker, and there's portions of the city that already use that. So you can look at, how many permanent jobs, who's hired, which zip codes and things like that. The last thing is just to remember that these agreements are not the end of the fight. They're just the beginning. So as hard as you fought to get these agreements, it's just the beginning. I used to work on agreements with banks. They're called CRA agreements, but they're very similar. But it's the banks are taking money in from our communities, and the short version is they got to lend back out, but they weren't. So you get these agreements with them. They meet. You meet with them regularly. One of the lessons learned from that is the agreements are the starting piece. Those meetings are a starting piece. It is your guarantee that you will continue to negotiate as things come up, because there will be hiccups, there will be unintended consequences, there will be unexpected things that come up. So for example, one of the banking agreements we won, they were going to lend out and all this stuff. And then come one of the meetings we go, okay, why aren't you making the loans? And they go, well, no one qualifies for credit. So we said, well, but folks have been paying rent on time. You got to do something. So what came out of it was that there's a new product that was introduced that took lower credit scores, and where credit scores weren't the decision-making factor for it, rewrote a product. And that product meant that a lot of loans went out to neighborhoods. They surpassed their, I think it was like $1 trillion in goals. So they passed that, and that product ended up having a lower default rate than the national average. But that wasn't something that was anticipated going into the agreement. So part of the transparency part is being able to use the CBA as an excuse to get to the table to facilitate transparency going forward and figuring out where those hiccups are. So, okay, on jobs, we're not sending you enough people. Okay, why is that? Oh, because your pre-qualification requirements are too stringent. We need to fix that, right? Or, okay, we've sent you enough people, but now you aren't hiring. Okay, what's going on? Oh, they aren't meeting the requirements. Okay, why is that? So part of the transparency is the upfront, but part of the transparency is also once you get the agreement is going forward and having those conversations. The last thing I want to say is lessons learned from a couple of the developments we have is non-disclosure agreements are your enemy. they are your enemy, and they're going to ask for it at every step in the way. And I would just say, one of the things that Kingsbridge did that was, I think, really good is that they set the agenda ahead of time, so that when the one developer fell through because of community rallied against them, when the next developer came, they knew exactly what they were doing and everything was transparent. So the last thing, I don't know if Mike Thomas is still in the room, because I can't see because of
Behind the pillar.
Okay, but I know your part is, I know we're dealing with non-disclosure agreements up front so that they aren't sharing who even the bidders are for the Southwark site. But Garfield Park, if I remember correctly, it has a commitment with their alderman to review, like community review of developments. Is that correct? Do you want to just say really quickly how you got
Yeah,
that?
just real briefly, Mike Thomas with the Garfield Park Community Council. I'm joined here by our community organizer, Darren Hawk. Garfield Park is just west of here. Alderman Burnett, to some extent Alderman Irving supports it as well, but definitely Alderman Burnett does. And we worked with the city of Chicago. They took a look at it as well. But we have a developer's application. It's on our website, gpcommunitycouncil.org. I think it's under our housing tab. But we ask all of our developers to fill that out. It helps us just track what kind of developments come in the neighborhood, basic contact information. But then pages 2, 3, and 4 start getting a little more detail about what the project is, where there are potential benefits. And then it allows our monthly land use committee to kind of review that and see where there's benefits. And then we use that as a starting point on a conversation on trying to vet the project. You know, one last note on it. You know, sometimes you get those developers who just fill it out really quick, and then we say, well, we're going to reject your project. And then like, hold up. Let me go get my attorney and let me really fill it out. So even when you try to convey that this is a serious document that's been approved by the city and looked at by the city, the alderman looks towards it, you still have those developers trying to cut corners. So it is a process. I would agree that it is a process, and we've used it. I was a volunteer who created it, so I could send it around and then